Filler words are interesting, and you know the filler words. I've heard of them. I had a colleague one time that called them word whiskers. These are your default words. You all have default words. When it was popular to, I think it's kind of coming away, the default word, filler word, would be like. So, like, we're going to go to a movie, and, like, we're going to watch a preview, and, like, maybe we can get popcorn, and, like, maybe we can do this, and like. And if like is not your filler word, it's going to come up like an antenna. You see, I just said like there, but I actually meant it as it was. Like is a filler word.
Welcome to the Sam Linton Show, the podcast designed to help you shift your mindset, find your voice, and change your world. Sam is a pastor, coach, and expert communicator, helping leaders and entrepreneurs like you step into their purpose, speak with confidence, and make a lasting difference. So let's dive in.
My wife and I have both noticed that my daughter has this thing that she's been doing. She's 9, so I don't want to say her name, or I don't want to say her age wrong. I've done that before. But as a 9-year-old, sometimes when we're at the most intense parts of our conversations with her, if she's upset about something or maybe something didn't go her way, she will analyze, or let me say, she'll emphasize the last letter of the sentence. So, for example, let's say you and I were arguing back and forth, and she, it starts to get heated. Well, if you were arguing with my daughter, she might say, "You need to quit." Like, she'll put that extra t at the end of a sentence. And I've been trying to figure out, for the life of me, where in the world did she get this? Because I don't see my wife behaving that way. Like, she never emphasizes the last. She doesn't go, Puh! She doesn't hit that last consonant with the gusto of a battalion of troops. She doesn't do that. My daughter does it. My wife does not. Therein lies the conundrum. What in the world are we talking about here, right? So, after a while, I've been talking to my wife, and she said the other day, and she noticed it, I was kind of tense about something, I was working on something, and I said, we have to make this work. And I emphasized the K. And she goes, there you go. And I was like, what? And I didn't notice it. I did not notice it. Can you believe it? I didn't notice that my daughter had picked this up from me. Not at all. And I thought I was the communications person. Like, I should know all of my words. I only have the right words. I mean, some might say the best words. That's my Trump impression. I don't do a Trump impression really good. I just kind of say Trump things in my own voice. It's not a good Trump impression. You gotta learn. You say the things. I'm not really good at it. But anyway, to the point of this story, because there is a point, I didn't know that I did this. And the only way that I was made aware that I did it was when my wife recognized it in response to something else that she noticed in my daughter. So what does this have to do with speaking? Well, you're going to see how important this is, because today on the Sam Linton Show, we are going to focus on those of us who speak pretty regularly. Now, leaders, I'm talking to you. You have to speak all the time. We know that it's a part of the package. It's almost like it came with the original equipment. So I'm going to kind of really speak to the importance of knowing some of these things that happen when you've been speaking for a regular amount of time. So if you're used to leading the meetings, if you find yourself having the one-on-ones, if you find yourself in the place of being the person who initiates the group chatter, there's a really good chance that these 3 things are happening unaware to you. And it's my job to get you to be aware of them so that you can utilize them, capitalize on them, and maybe even change some of those things. So these are 3 things I would say that I learned as being a public speaker. I've been a public speaker for 21 years. So these are 3 things that I've learned as a public speaker for this long of a time that are also most likely affecting you. And I would say that these take place, I'm going to just say roughly from year 5 to 10 to 15 maybe. So from 5 to 10, let's just say that. We'll put that on the cap. These are arbitrary, but from year 5 to 10, when you're used to speaking, these things are happening. All right, so we're going to go to the first one, and that was the open of what I talked about with my daughter. You have developed some unconscious bad habits. You have developed some unconscious bad habits. Some situations where you're speaking, you're doing it now in autopilot. When you deliver a message, you might do something with your face. You might be picking at your clothing. You might be kind of twiddling your thumbs. And what it is if somebody asks you if you're comfortable, you're not going to say you're uncomfortable per se. No. But what is happening is there's some unconscious stuff going on because you are now used to being in front of people. So you're doing some unconscious things. You're not trying to distract people, but these bad habits, whatever they may be, only you know what they are. And actually, you probably don't know what they are. That's why they're unconscious. Other people do, though. They know what your bad habits are. For men, it might be, and if I was coaching you, we have VIP days. And if I'm coaching you, a lot of times what men do, I don't see this with women, call it whatever you want. I think I've talked about this before. Men will do what I call the seasick, where you're not watching me if you're listening to this on a podcast, but on the video, they move back and forth. And they will convince themselves that movement is either benign, it doesn't make a difference, or better still, it's useful. Because look, I'm energetic, I'm moving, I have activity. I'm not just sitting there. I'm not just sitting there listening or watching as I'm talking. I'm not doing that in the discussion. I'm moving back and forth. And it's an unconscious bad habit. Another bad habit we have oftentimes is what we do with our fingers. We twiddle our thumbs. We keep our fingers together like prayer hands. We inadvertently make like kind of gestures with our fingers that are not intentional. And unintentional body language is usually distracting. It's a bad habit. And people will say, I don't know, I just do this. This is what I do when I speak. It's kind of my thing. When I get in front of people, I tend to do whatever. It's become a bad habit. It's not helping your presentation. You're not doing it on purpose. You're doing it because it's an unconscious bad habit. Another thing is filler words. Now, filler words are interesting, and you know the filler words. I've heard of them. I had a colleague one time that called them word whiskers. These are your default words. You all have default words. When it was popular to, I think it's kind of coming away, the default word, filler word would be like. So like we're going to go to a movie and like we're going to watch a preview and like maybe we can get popcorn and like maybe we can do this and like. And if like is not your filler word, it's going to come up like an antenna. You see I just said like there, but I actually meant it as it was. Like is a filler word. Another filler word is or like just any kind of grunt, like, yeah, you know is another one. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? You know is mine. So when I'm speaking, when I'm being extemporaneous, if you and I are in conversation, I will stop and say, like I'll mention that as a filler word. I won't know I'm doing it. I can't even execute it because it's unconscious, but it happens. So I did some research on filler words. This is interesting. Filler words, speakers use filler words, and this comes from the Journal of Memory and Language. This is an article. It's a little old. It's from 2012, but I think the psychology still rings true. They use it primarily because it actually gives your brain time to focus and organize key thoughts. So you ever wonder why somebody, when they're speaking from the platform, is using filler words? Their brain is running a hamster wheel trying to catch up to the words that they're saying. This is why almost universally, now I'm not going to say always, because always is a lie, but as a universal rule, you could do a lot worse to immediately improve your communication by just slowing down. I don't say always, because if you're telling a story that has a lot of action and you are really ramping it up, you might be going through and this person did this and that person did this and this is, and you're building that suspense. I don't want to say slow down. So then this person opened fire. No, it's not going to have the same weight, obviously. So the filler words are only happening in these cases usually because your brain is trying to catch up. Your words are moving ahead of what your brain can formulate. So when you slow down, the filler words drop off. The number one thing that I get when people ask me about their communication, especially executives, hey, get rid of my filler words. Get rid of my and oh yeah, sure, and this, and tell me how to get rid of them. I'll say, well, we could probably get rid of them pretty quickly. It really just comes down to you taking your time. If you take your time, then when you slow down, your brain stays ahead of the words and you actually pick better words. And here's another cute thing about filler words. It's okay if there's a little bit of silence. Who said that we have to be talking the whole time? If there's a pause, if there's a breath, if there's an opportunity for the person you're talking to interject, is that the worst thing? Is that really the worst thing that could happen? That you're sitting with somebody or you're running a meeting or you're speaking from the stage and you let a little bit of a pause enter and you allow your words to have a little bit of a greater impact. So, that's a bad habit. These are all falling under the categories of bad habits, and it's okay because we all have them. But you're really going to have started to develop them in year 5 because now you've been speaking a lot. You're no longer imitating. If you missed that, that would be last week's. You imitate. You're more almost finding your own voice. You're finding your own way. You're getting connected with the material, but you've picked up some bad habits. So second thing that happens typically to people when they're speaking all the time is their pacing shifts. And this is so exciting. Their pacing shifts. Just like with the filler words, I'm going to pick up where we left off. One of the biggest, I don't want to say that it's a tell of someone who doesn't speak frequently or someone that's nervous, is that when they speak, they fly. And I'm talking about NASCAR. Their goal is to get from A to Z in as quick of amount of time as possible. They don't even want you to consider them as they're wasting any time. So, when you're speaking, and you've been speaking for a while, what will happen is you start to vary that pacing, and the results are immediate. You'll go, like I said earlier, if you're telling a story, you'll speed up around the details where there's action. If you come to the end and there's a moment where you want your audience or the person you're connected to really, really listen, you'll slow it down almost word by word. And what happens is, as a communicator, what you're doing, you're not just using a communication technique. No, it's not that simple. You are showing mastery. And you're showing that now you're no longer concerned about the words that you use. You're concerned about how you say it. And I would dare say that if you are a person who is speaking on a regular basis, you should be spending a lot more time on how you say what you say than the words. Because when you are saying something, how you say it is also communicating. When your pacing is varied, you are really focusing on the audience. And that is huge. You're not quite to the level of that you're feeling completely comfortable in your own skin. You might even be finding yourself in that really weird place of seeing things that other people are doing, and you're now critiquing, not in a negative way, like, oh, that person did this and it was sucky, this person did that. No, but you're really seeing for the first time maybe that there's something that you can do that they did that help you make a connection with your people the way they're making the connection with the audience. It's really, really fascinating when this happens, because when it happens, you're now focusing on the how I speak and not just what I say. Big, big, big difference. So the pacing shifts. Also, the tone shifts. I'll add that. It's the pacing and how you say what you say. So you're using tone and volume. I have a framework that I use to take all of my colleagues and my clients through. It's called the Trained and Confident Communicator Framework. And what it is it's a picture of a train. I know, original, right? It has to be a pun because I'm a father. And the train has different components. And one of the components is pacing. Those are the tracks. If the tracks go at a different angle, let's say it's coming around a mountain in a bend, of course the train is going to go slower. That's your pacing. But one of the things that moves the train is the tone and volume. That would be the engine. And the tone and volume, a lot of times people think their tone has to be always up like this, and you're always like you're the late night used car salesman that call this number right now and we'll get you this and we'll get... That becomes monotone. So just like you vary your pacing, you also want to vary your tone and volume. When you are really trying to express something in a big way, you're going to be speaking higher. If you're trying to get people to lean into what it is that you're saying, you might speak softer. And we'll talk more about tone and volume in the coming weeks, obviously, because we can't hit it all in one thing. But you're going to start to notice that as you speak regularly, you are going to pay attention to your pacing. Maybe you'll slow down more. Maybe you won't be so quick to exit stage left and get done with this communication, and it's going to be fun. So that's the second shift that needs to happen. The third and final shift that happens as a result of regularly speaking and communicating, whether it's to a small team, whether it's on stage, is that intuition will start to trump preparation. Let me say that again. Your intuition will start to trump preparation. Now, I am going to talk out of both sides of my mouth for a moment. I believe that it's important that you have good preparation. I believe it's important that you know enough about your subject, whether it's talking about the numbers from last quarter, whether it's discussing political trends if you're about to give a political speech, whether it is a sermon that you're preaching, or whether you're casting vision for the entire organization. You have to know enough about your subject to speak about it conversationally. And we could talk about that. That's going to be something else we talk about in the coming weeks, is how to know that you've studied enough, how to know that you haven't overprepared. We talked about that last week. But here's the cool part. You know when you're on the right track, when you will be speaking, and as you're about to say something, something clicks in your mind, and you say, I'm skipping that. Or you look at the time, you look at your audience, you kind of see what's going on with the people, and you go, I don't think that this is really landing. And because it's not landing, I think I'm just going to move to the final point. Or something is really landing in the middle of the talk and people are engaged and they're having conversations. Let's say you're talking to your team and you're trying to rally the troops around an initiative. You might see that there's more conversation around point one than there is around point two. You will spend more time on point one. And you might feel a little weird. You might feel like you just jumped into a river and you're not sure how deep it is. And this is the unique place of being able to communicate completely focused on being in the moment. It is priceless when it happens. But your intuition takes over because you know the people better. You understand the material enough to know, they don't need to know about this as much. They need to know about this. They don't need to know what the history of this product is. They need to know how it is that we can manufacture this quicker. They don't need to know how exactly we're going to onboard new clients. They just need to know that something is up with our marketing. And it's my job to communicate that there's something up, and I'm going to fix that. I want to work on this. So intuition becomes key, because now you're firing on all cylinders. And this happened to me when as I told you before, I'm a pastor. And it happens more frequently now than it used to, but when I'm speaking, I speak 4 times a weekend. I speak once on Saturday night, 3 on Sunday. And when I'm speaking, what I do is I have my notes. And the reason I have notes, I don't speak without using notes, but I have very sparse notes. And I have the scriptures on there because I speak from the Bible. So in the notes, the Bible's written out and the points are written out because I want to make sure that I'm staying in line with what the presentations team has going and the tech team has going, and all those things. But every now and again, I'll be speaking and I'll go, okay, you know what? I think God wants me to do something different here. And I move away from my original point and I center onto something that I am feeling or that is impressed upon me by the audience, something that they might need to hear. Or I'll be about to speak and something's going on in current events and I change up what I'm saying for the purpose of bringing people to connect to that material. Now, I know this sounds a little bit odd, and if you're not used to speaking, the idea of you going off script might seem crazy, but believe it or not, it's one of your most powerful tools if you're a regular communicator, because it's showing that not only do you have a plan, not only do you desire to connect with the audience, but the third thing is you're willing to blow that plan up for the sake of the audience and getting them to engage with your content more. It's truly a masterful thing. And it happens especially when you've delivered a topic for quite a while. It happens a lot when you're used to saying the same things, when you start to become more off the cuff. I don't recommend this if you're using a teleprompter. Politicians will sometimes do this. Trump is the master of this. He's not a teleprompter guy. He'll have it, then he veers off. And it's a certain kind of talent to be able to do that and still stay focused, but you have to really know what the context is before you can jump ship and abandon plane. If you are there to deliver your company's numbers and speak to them with authority, you don't want to just tell stories. I mean, you have to have the homework done, or else people are going to be like, we came there for the numbers and he told me this joke about, 2 farmers that lived in Kansas or whatever, and it didn't fit. So you want to make sure that it actually serves the people and doesn't just get you to blow up a plan that you weren't really too hot about to begin with, if that makes sense. Okay, so let's recap this. So you have some bad habits. You have some shifting and pacing that will happen, and you're going to like what you see. I guarantee it. And then finally, you're going to start to obey your intuition more than your script at times. And when that happens, it's really where the magic starts to happen. Now you're into that proficiency where you're really, really trusting yourself. You're really getting buy-in from the audience because they would rather listen to a communicator who is authentic than one who is perfect. So I want to tell you that one of the ways to get here quicker, especially if you're an executive, an entrepreneur, or a high-level business owner, is a business owner, I should say, is coaching. Now, I was a pastor for 12 years before I experienced true coaching on my speaking. I was working, this is actually one of my Dale Carnegie stories, but I was already a pastor, and I took a public speaking class, which I was like, this is dumb. I've already been a pastor for over a decade at this point. I don't need somebody to help me with my speaking, but that little interaction with that Dale Carnegie trainer and some coaching around how I speak, it changed everything. And here's the secret about this kind of coaching. It doesn't require a lot of time. You might think, oh, does this mean I have to get coached for months and months? Not really. You see, there's a handful of things that are happening in your speaking right now that if you were to change them and shift them a little bit, it would totally make your whole entire message change. But it has to be you doing it intentionally. It's not going to happen automatically. What's going to happen automatically is you're going to speak into some bad habits. What's going to happen automatically is your pacing might stay the same unless you are even aware of how pacing works. And also, if you're not being coached on how to be authentic, how likely are you to actually listen to your own intuition when you feel that the need arises? So here's my challenge. if you're listening to this and you're like, I really, really want to get better at my speaking, well, then my encouragement is to reach out to me. I would love to coach you. We have a VIP day that we do, which is it's specifically designed for executives, because a lot of times executives, they don't like going to like a full group where there's a ton of people. I will work with you one-on-one. We'll spend about 4 hours together. I will get you to a place where you understand some things that you need to quit. You adopt some things that I'll show you that needs to be adopted, and you'll be able to see with confidence what your next meeting looks like, because you'll be speaking with a different level than you had previously. The people that I've experienced this with and the people that I've worked with, they truly have unbelievable amounts of good things to say about this. And it's not one of those things where you're going to experience it and have a fun moment, but it truly can change the way your communication happens for the rest of your life. So if that sounds like it's something that might be interesting to you, or if you're looking at some other coaching that we have towards your speaking or towards your business, I would love to help you and serve your team, because we believe, and I'll steal this from Craig Rochelle, when a leader gets better, the whole entire organization gets better, because the leader is firing on all the cylinders. So with that said, thank you for coming to the Sam Linton Show. If you're interested in coaching, just reach out to podcast@samuellinton.com. If you have a YouTube video you want to share with me, I'd love to give you some feedback, show you some things that I see, some strengths to emphasize, maybe some things to change, to give you an immediate feedback. So with that said, reach out to me, and we would love to get you into one of our VIP days. But until next time, thank you for joining the show, and continue to shift your mindset, find your voice, and change your world. Bye-bye.